Don't think it didn't connect. All right, perfect. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha. Perfect. That's good. That's good. That's good, Prabhu. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Gora Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Paravrajikacharya Stotra Sat Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. BBT founder Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Segaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaura Nitai Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning, and thank you very much to the devotees for inviting me and allowing me to be present here in this auspicious setting, ISKCON of New York City, and the presence of Shri Radha Govinda and Shri Gaur Nitai and Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra Devi. So before beginning, I would like to seek blessings from all the assembled devotees that you see fit to bestow your mercy upon me so that I can speak something relevant and bona fide from the pages of this most exalted scripture, the Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam. Only by the mercy of Vaishnavas is anything possible, so I am therefore seeking your blessings. Hare Krishna. Blessings, you raise right hand and give blessings. Hare Krishna. Okay, Mataji, blessings. Haribol, thank you, that's what we need. Okay, so today we are going to be reading from the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 12. And this chapter is entitled, Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead. And we're almost completed this chapter. I think there's only 2 verses after this, 2 or 3. And we'll be reading text 49 and 50. Before we begin, we can recite the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Purnamasyam Sinivalyam Dvadasyam Shravanetava Dinakshaye Vyatipate Sankrame Rikadine Piva Shravechadadananam Tirthapada Padashraya Necham Tatramanatmanam Santushta iti siddhyati Purnamasyam Sinivalyam Dvadasyam Shravanetava Dinakshaya Vyatipate Sankrame Rikadine Piva Shravayechadadananam Tirthapada Padashraya Necham Tatratmanatmanam Santushta iti siddhyati. Someone else? Purnamasyam Sinivalyam Dvadasyam Shravanetava Dinakshaye Vyatipate Sakrame Rikadine Piva Shravayechadadananam Tirthapada Padashraya Necham Tatratmanatmanam Santushta iti siddhyati. Purnamasya Sinivalyam Dvadasyam Shavanetava Dinakshaye vyatipate Sankrame kriknani piva Neshwaradananam Tirthapada Padashrayaha Necham Tatratmanatmanam Santushta iti siddhyati Purnamasya Shinivalyam Dvadasyam Shavanetava Dinakshaye Vyatipati Sankrame Kadine Piva Shavaye Chadadananam Tirthapada Padashayaha Necham Tatratmanatmanam Santushta iti siddhyati. Lady Mataji. Purnamasyam Sinivalyam Dvadasyam Shavanetava Dinakshaye Vyatipate Sankrame Kadine Piva Shravayachadadananam Tirthapada Padashraya Necham Tatratmanatmanam Santushta iti siddhyati. Word for word. Purnamasyam, on the full moon day. Sinivalyam, on the dark moon day. Dvadasyam, on the day after Ekadasi. Shravane, during the Shravana star's appearance. Atava, or Dinakshaye, at the end of the Titi. Vyatipate, a particular day of the name. Sankrame, at the end of the month. Arkadine, on Sunday. Api, also. Va, or. Shravayet, one should recite. Sradadananam, to a receptive audience. Tirthapada, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pada ashraya, taken shelter of the lotus feet. Na ichan, without desiring remuneration. Tatra, there. Atmana, by the self. Atmanam, the mind. Santushtaha, pacified. Iti, thus. Siddhyati, becomes perfect. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Persons who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord should recite this narration of Dhruva Maharaj without taking remuneration. Specifically, recitation is recommended on the full moon or dark moon day, on the day after Ekadasi, on the appearance of the Shravana star, at the end of a particular titi, or the occasion of Yatipata, at the end of the month, or on Sunday. Each such recitation should, of course, be performed before a favorable audience, When recitation is performed this way, without professional motive, the reciter and audience become perfect. Purport. Professional reciters may ask money to extinguish the blazing fire within their bellies, but they cannot make any spiritual improvement or become perfect. It is therefore strictly forbidden to recite Srimad Bhagavatam as a profession to earn a livelihood. Only one who is completely surrendered at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, depending fully on Him for personal maintenance or even the maintenance of his family, can attain perfection by recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narrations of the pastimes of the Lord and His devotees. The process can be summarized as follows. The audience must be faithfully receptive to the Bhagavat message, and the reciter should completely depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavat recitation must not be a business. If done in the right way, not only does the reciter achieve perfect satisfaction, but the Lord also is very satisfied with the reciter and the audience, and thus both are liberated from the material bondage simply by the process of hearing. Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Jnana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Zajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patiranam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So, we have something on the screen here. I don't know if everyone can see that clearly. It's a little hard to see from here. No, I don't need to see it. I'm okay. But I just wanted to make sure, it was up there. And I guess whoever is viewing from home may not be able to see it, but like that. So, we're going to discuss Dhruva's journey today, and this is the conclusion of this pastime. And it also is the potency of this pastime, as we're hearing that it should be chanted Anyone remembers what the different perfect days for hearing from this? Anyone remembers from the list that we read? Yes. Dwadasi, yes. Jai, Jai, Jai. Haribol. Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki Jai. Shri Gopal Pram Prabhu ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Okay, Dwadasi. Is today Dwadasi? No. Okay. Sunday. Is today Sunday? No. Okay. Any others? Full moon. Is today the full moon? Nope. Dark moon. Is today Amavasya? Nope. Any others? Yeah, during the month of Shravan. Yes. Is it? Nope. Any others? End of the month. Is it? No. Almost. It's not even halfway through, Bubba. Next. Oh, yes. Yes, Vedic month. Might be close to Vedic month. Yes. Any others? Huh? Because you weren't here for the verse. So the verse mentions that this pastime should be recited at all these times, and then that's immensely auspicious. There was one more that you guys didn't get yet. Nope, he said that one. End of a titi. And I just looked at my calendar, and actually there is a titi for sunrise Gayatri, which was from 7:33 to 8:21. So we started just at 8:21. Haribol. Okay. Otherwise, I would have had to pack the whole show up and go on the road, you know. Okay, so we're going to continue, and I'm going to put you all to the test a little bit. So, what do you see are the main themes of this verse, and especially of the purport? And you're at a little disadvantage unless you quickly read through. If you're a speed reader, you might be good. And I think you were kind of in and out of the room. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes, that was an important point that was made. Better not to hear from paid reciters. So, my humble request is, although, you know, we're always happy to accept donations as brahmanas, but please, no one pay me at the end of this gig, okay? Thank you. Only prasad. Okay, that's acceptable, yes. What else? Anyone else can think of a main theme? Yes, Mother. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. The audience must be receptive. So now that's a big question for all of you. If you feel receptive, say Haribol. Okay, all right. Well, even from behind. Okay, so yes. All right, so we'll go on. This kind of captures two of the main essence. What I kind of gathered was that it was about qualification and disqualification. So really in the purport especially, Srila Prabhupada spoke a lot about the qualification required and also what is the disqualification for hearing this pastime. So here's part of the purport. Only one who is completely surrendered at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, depending fully on Him for personal maintenance or even for maintenance of his family, can attain perfection by recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narrations of the pastimes of the Lord and His devotees. So this is a qualification for who? For the speaker. So I'm really sorry about that. So I'm not really so qualified. Because what's being asked here is that one has to be completely surrendered. Completely surrendered. So this is what Dhruva Maharaj possessed. Although in the beginning of his pastime, his inspiration wasn't actually pure devotional service. His inspiration was very much tainted by a material desire, which was to get a kingdom. Yeah, kingdom. I recall it was a whole planet. He wanted his own planet. You know, he wanted a kingdom greater than the kingdom of who? Lord Brahma. I mean, that's not a small ask. So he was definitely motivated. But he was completely surrendered to the fact that Krishna could provide that. that the Supreme Lord could provide that. And we're going to discuss this a little bit later. So in that way, I'm also hoping that at least I have some little bit of faith that the Supreme Lord will help me to become qualified, even though I am disqualified. So like that. Okay, so that's, then the next part is a disqualification. And what is a disqualification? The disqualification, it is therefore strictly forbidden to recite Srimad Bhagavatam as a profession to earn a livelihood. Now one might say this is, could say it might be a gray area. Prabhupada continues, Bhagavat recitation must not be a business. Now, does that mean that if we have sannyasis or gurus who basically they live by the fact that they just preach Bhagavatam, they go from temple to temple and they receive donations, they're always speaking Bhagavatam, does that mean that they're making a business of Bhagavatam recitation? Some say yes, some say no, I heard. I would think not. Maybe making a business is a little more intentional, like I'm here and I'll show up if you pay me. And I'll speak for X amount of time and then my time's up. Or in India, they have these big Bhagavat Saptahas and thousands of people attend. And at the same time, often remuneration is given to the speaker in a clearly, maybe even contracted amount. The speaker has a manager. He knows that I'm speaking here, I'm speaking at this one, then I'm speaking at this one. So it is actually like a business, which may be different from someone who just simply preaches or speaks from the Bhagavatam, and is still somehow or other, as if you remember, it mentioned that the qualification is that the person has to be surrendered to the Lord for his maintenance, or even the maintenance of his family, which means that, of course, there is going to be some remuneration. Was Srila Prabhupada maintained? Yes or no? Of course. Prabhupada was living in a humble abode in Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. But in later years, he had literally almost like palaces on every continent, and wherever he would go, there was temples. He would brag. At the airports, he would talk about how many cars they had, or, if someone said, they picked you up in a Rolls Royce, don't you think that's a little excessive? And Prabhupada was like, no, it should have been a gold Rolls Royce. It should have been solid gold, because I'm the spiritual master, the representative of God. So Prabhupada was certainly being maintained. Prabhupada also called book distribution the family business. So he was making a business of Bhagavatam, in one sense you could say. But the point is, underlying all this, what was the motivation? Was he simply coming to speak Bhagavatam and sell Bhagavatams to make money? No, that wasn't the purpose. The purpose was to make devotees. And therefore, sometimes Prabhupada would speak very heavily, even against the, like I remember hearing recently from Leelamrita, how Prabhupada gave one, some visitors came, God, I can't remember their names now. They were like some kind of group. Allen Ginsberg brought them. They were quite obnoxious, I think. They had some songs that were quite obnoxious, really promoting free love, free sex, drugs taking, like that. And Prabhupada spoke, The thugs, yeah. So, and Prabhupada gave a talk, and knowing they were in the audience, and he spoke so heavily against illicit sex especially. And they kind of left, and afterwards the devotee said, Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, what do you want me to do? You want me to change the philosophy to suit your Western kind of culture and mentality? That's not why I'm here. So those who are serious and sincere, they will take to the process. So like that. So Prabhupada wasn't, otherwise, if you were interested in just making money, you would have been like, well, let me twist this a little bit, so I can bring them on board. Even in the first sitting with John and George and Yoko, Prabhupada was straight down the line. You can read it and chant and be happy. He wasn't twisting and bending to try to mollycoddle them. he was giving it straight, so like that. So that's the pure-hearted preacher. So the process was summarized in the Bhagavatam, in the purport. And the first was that the audience must be faithfully receptive to the Bhagavat message. So my humble request is, please, all of you, be faithfully receptive to this message, even though it's coming from an impure source. The second was that the reciter should completely depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I am absolutely disqualified. I'm depending on their lordships, Sri Sri Radha Govinda, Sri Sri Gaura Nitai, Jagannath Baladev, and Subhadra, to please help me. And the last part is, if it is done in the right way, not only does the reciter achieve perfect satisfaction, but the Lord also is very satisfied with the reciter and the audience, and thus both are liberated from material bondage. Haribol, simply by the process of hearing. So, is our goal to be perfectly satisfied? Yes. Who else says yes? Okay. I'm sorry to disappoint you. That is absolutely not our goal. Just so you know, recently reading in the Brihad Bhagavatam Rita, and it was very, very strongly stipulated there by Srila Sanatana Goswami that our goal is not to just become satisfied. Our goal is not shanti, shanti, shanti. But our goal is what? To please Krishna to the best of our ability, even if that causes us distress. Srimati Radharani's prayer in Chaitanya Charitamrita is, Krishna, if serving you, if pleasing you causes me distress, then that distress becomes my greatest happiness. So this is the mood of a pure devotee. So, and I was thinking, yeah, but don't we want to be, sure, we want to be a little satisfied. It's not like I should be in distress all the time, right? We're thinking like that. So, but the goal, the ultimate goal is not that I should become satisfied. The goal is that Krishna should become satisfied. But in the process, what will happen is that we also become self-satisfied in certain ways. I was with my uncle once, and he's a very well-to-do person, and I was talking with him and my auntie was kind of getting into different kind of spirituality and opening up, and my uncle said something very unusual to me. He said, how did he put it? He said, we really like being in your association because you have become complete. And I was like, what does that mean? He said, you're satisfied. He said, you lead such a simple life. He's like, and I've worked so hard to earn so much money for so many years, and we live a relatively lavish life. He said, and I'm so incomplete. I'm just still searching, looking, hoping, wanting, craving. He said, now my wife, she's kind of become sort of complete. He said, because she's starting to see things that will help her be satiated and satisfied. So like that, a devotee definitely becomes a sort of satiated or satisfied. But that is not the goal. So like that. Okay, so, and also, is it our goal to become liberated from material bondage? Is that our goal? It's a byproduct. Thank you. Yes, it is a byproduct. Naturally, the devotee becomes liberated from material bondage. But actually, a devotee like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he prays, let me take birth as a bug. Yeah, as a bug. But please let it be in the house of a devotee. Why? So I can get the remnants. Get the remnants of their prasad and maybe hear some holy name, hear something. And Prabhupada would often talk about going back to Godhead, but then he would say that the pure devotee doesn't care if he takes birth in hell. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Janami, Janami, Ishware, whether I take birth again and again and again. So like that, we understand that actually on the purest platform, the pure devotee isn't even concerned about becoming liberated. The pure devotee just simply wants to satisfy Krishna. So this is not an easy pill to swallow. So we don't have so much time, but I have, my wife and I, have like a seminar series that we give in 3 parts on the journey of Dhruva Maharaj. So I was going to try to do that in 20 minutes. But it'll be just a quick blast, and it'll be lots of pictures and lots of remembrances, because I thought, okay, because we're at the end of a TT, we have a qualified audience, a disqualified speaker, but at least I'm trying to surrender. Then I thought, let's hear this pastime in totality once again, just as a conclusion. Is everyone okay with that? All right. So we're going to go for it. So it's Dhruva's journey. And part 1 of that journey is from the beginning of his pastime, which is the catalyst. And what is the catalyst? It's that Dhruva Maharaj was insulted. So here we see Dhruva Maharaj's entire pastime actually comes from something that we might consider an immense setback, an obstacle, or a very negative experience in our own life, right? So Dhruva Maharaj's glorious ending began with an insult to him. And what was that insult? The insult came from 2 catalyst verses. Coming from whom? Not from the mother. From the stepmother. And what was her name? Suruchi, yes. And his mother's name was Suniti and Suruchi. So she first said, if we had a roaming, you got a roaming mic. Would you read this for me? And we can pass it around. We can take turns.
While the child Dhruva Maharaj was trying to get on the lap of his father, Suruchi, his stepmother, became very envious of the child, and with great pride she began to speak so as to be heard by the king himself.
Yes, so she is going to speak. Next person can read.
Kyun Suruchi told Dhruva Maharaj, "My dear child, you do not deserve to sit on the throne or on the lap of the king. Surely you are also the son of the king, but because you did not take your birth from my womb, you are not qualified to sit on your father's lap."
I mean, this is pretty harsh, right? You can imagine growing up in a home. Now, of course, he has 2 wives, but sometimes we have stepmothers, step-parents, or adopted parents, or foster parents, or whatever it might be. And just to have anyone say to you that even though you're born the son of a king, but you're disqualified because you didn't take birth from my womb, it cuts so deeply. Regardless of if you're a Kshatriya or not, it still cuts the heart. It's very, very heavy. And all of this is fueled by envy. So this is the acronym, and it's envy, Narayan, victim, or yogi. So this is the catalyst, and it's driven by this propensity of envy. You see here in this picture, a man is going up the ladder, but there's someone who isn't happy about that, and he goes and gets an axe, and he's going to just chop it down. So what is envy? Envy is a painful or resentful awareness of an advantage or possession enjoyed by another, and the desire to possess that thing, to have that, and one becomes envious. And of course we know that this envy is one of the main reasons that we're here in the material world, because we primarily become envious of who?
Krishna.
Of Krishna. So I know there's this picture of the Krishna with the Astasakis. It's a really beautiful painting. And I remember sometimes looking at that painting thinking, God, Krishna, he's got all these beautiful girls hanging around with him, and they all love him, so much, and they'll do anything for him. Wouldn't it be nice to be Krishna? And, if we're honest, that's there a little bit, maybe in some of our hearts, maybe a lot in other people's hearts. And people who are really, really envious of Krishna, they just try to live it out. Someone like Hugh Hefner, who is the creator of Playboy magazine, had the Playboy mansion. This guy is trying to live out being Krishna and enjoying, to the utmost of his possibility. And people become envious of this. So another thing that is spoken, someone else or can read there's not so many to pass it around, but.
If you would all desire to rise to the throne of the king, then you have to undergo severe austerities. First of all, you must satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and then when you are favored by him, because of such worship, you shall have to take your next birth from my womb.
Look at that, It reminds me of when the devotees were with Prabhupada in Vrindavan and they went to some of the Goswami temples, and the Goswami said, yes, come in, have darshan, take some prasad. If you're lucky in your next life, you will take birth in India or in our family line, And they went back and told Prabhupada, and Prabhupada, what did he say? He said, if they're lucky, they'll take birth in America in their next life, and they'll join this movement. So like that. So different visions, different angles of vision. But this statement is so powerful that Suruchi actually plants the seed of what Dhruva actually has to do, which is worship the Lord, surrender to the Lord. But we see the second part isn't going to be necessary. So in that, we see Dhruva Maharaj goes to the forest, but first he goes to see someone else. Before he goes to the forest, who does he go to see? His mother, Suniti, because how old is Dhruva? Like 5 years old. 5-year-old boy has just had his heart broken by his stepmother and by his father, because his father didn't refute it. His father didn't say, don't speak like that. His father didn't say, you're destined to be the king. His father gave in to her. So his heart was broken by both personalities. Then he goes to his mother, hoping to find some shelter. And so it's described that, please, you can read this, mother.
She also was breathing very heavily, and she did not know the factual remedy for the painful situation. Not finding any remedy, she said to her son, "My dear son, don't wish for anything inauspicious for others. Anyone who inflicts pains upon others suffers himself from that pain."
What an instruction. From your mom. I guess it's kind of like if your mom says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Something like that. And now reading this, I'm remembering on the way here, because I was driving, and there was a car that came right up beside me. It wasn't even a passing lane, and then put on his turn signal and tried to cram itself between me and a bus. And I was like, hello. So immediately, because I've become a little bit now used to being in New York traffic, the first thing that I did was lay on the horn. and then I was like, what are you doing, you silly lady? And then they just kept pushing in. And then they pushed in, and then I was like meditating on the back of their car, and I started thinking, I hope you get a flat tire, I hope so. and then I was reminded of Ananta Govinda Prabhu at Thursday Night Kirtan. He often talks about his journey, I think, from Queens into Manhattan, and how he's often tempted to give the mudra to many people, like, what are you doing? and how traffic in New York can bring out the best in you, it's like that. But here we see Suruchi is saying, don't succumb to this desire to wish anything inauspicious for someone else. That's a real, even if we don't do it. I know one devotee that whenever something happens and then they say, don't worry, I'm going to pray to Lord Nrsimhadev for them. I think, are you praying for them? Are you praying, well, Lord Nrsimhadev, he has a way of sorting things out, It's like, oh my goodness, I hope they never pray to Lord Nrsimhadev for me. So another one. So, yes. Actually, they're busy. You can just pass it here, or you can keep reading.
My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi, your stepmother, although very harsh to hear, is factual. Therefore, if you desire at all to sit on the same throne as your stepbrother Uttam, then give up your envious attitude and immediately try to execute the instructions of your stepmother. Without further delay, you must engage yourself in worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So good, huh? What powerful instructions. What, talk about verses that should be hung on a thread and kept around our neck, It's like, first, Suniti she had heavy breathing. She was upset also. She was very upset about the fact that her son had been treated like this. But she didn't allow those emotions to color her instructions to her son. And here she says, Dhruva, you have to give up your envious attitude. So here we see that actually Dhruva is all upset because he's envious. He's envious of the fact that his brother may be the one who gets the throne and not him. He's envious that Uttam's mother is the cherished wife of his father. He's envious of the fact that his father didn't treat him with respect, and he's sitting on the throne, and he's the king, and he's not in that position. All of these things are bubbling underneath the surface. And in fact, if we look deep, unfortunately, sometimes these things are also bubbling underneath the surface within us. But here we see that Suniti is instructing, you have to give that up. You can't think callously about them. You can't wish harm to them. But what Suniti has said is right. So, as Chanakya Pandit says, we have to try to find gold in a filthy place. So sometimes the person or the way that something is delivered is so inappropriate. But what they delivered actually, if we think about it, is correct. Reminds me of when Prabhupada was in Amsterdam about to conduct a yajna ceremony, and he asked the devotees, bring fruit to decorate the yajna stall. And they brought mixed fruit chopped up. He's like, what is this? This isn't how you prepare for a yajna. And then he started getting upset. And then some hippie, probably drugged out hippie guy, long-haired, disheveled, was sitting there next to Prabhupada, and he said, hey, Swamiji, chant Hare Krishna, be happy. And Prabhupada said, yes, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So he just started chanting. So we can see that sometimes Krishna speaks through someone else, and they may not deliver the message in the sweetest way. Dear Mataji, oh, glorious, gracious lady, thank you so much for, will you please sit up straight? It's like, they may just say, sit up! Or as Prabhupada says in his, yes, sit properly. So like that. So it may not always be delivered in the way, and with false ego, no correction is ever going to be received in the sweet way. Because if we have false pride and someone corrects us, immediately the false ego is like, what? Who are you talking to? Do you know who I am? Right? Anyone has that? I'm sure none of you have it. Only Radharani's raising her hand here, right? So like that, she's like, yes, Prabhuji. So, okay. So next one. Anyone would like to read?
Both the mother and the son were lamenting Dhruva Maharaj having been insulted by his stepmother and his father's not having taken any step on this issue. But mere lamentation is useless. One should find out the means to mitigate one's lamentation.
Beautiful. I mean, am I the only one here who thinks, wow, these are such potent instructions? How many times do people dwell? How often do we dwell on something? Like 10 years later, it's like, oh, you see this devotee, you haven't seen them in 10 years, and they walk in and you remember, that time they sneezed at me in the wrong direction or whatever. That time they, if I see that BMW that cut me up on the way back, I'm going to be like, It's like, how long do we hang on to these things? And we lament. We lament. But actually, mere lamentation is simply Useless. We should find out the means to mitigate it and move on. Let go and just move on. So here we see that there is also a principle of being a victim. And the question is, should we be a victim or should we not be a victim? In general in life, we understand, Prabhupada would say that there are no victims. We're not a victim because karma is the infallible justice. It's infallible. So no one's a victim. If something happens to you, it's because we deserve it. And it's harsh and it's heavy, but them's be the facts, folks. It's like, that's just the way it works, But it's not something that we openly propagate. There was the manager of the UK soccer team. I say soccer just so everyone here understands, but actually it's called football. And because there's a few Indian people here, then that's what it's called, football, the world over. But in America, we call it soccer. So anyway, the football coach, and I can't remember his name, he was asked by a reporter, because he was involved in some spiritual things, pseudo-spiritual, and someone said, so you believe in karma? And he said, yes, absolutely. And they said, so what about children who are born with, handicaps and disfigured and diseases and things? Do you think that's their karma? And he went, well, yes. And 2 weeks later, he was sacked. He was fired from his position for speaking like that because it was such an outroar from the public and the newspapers. Head coach says, handicapped children deserve it. They get what they deserve. He says it was meant for them. They're supposed to get, all these kind of different things. And he had to resign. He had to step down. So like that, people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that because most people say, I don't deserve this, right? The false ego again flares up and we think, I don't deserve this. Why is this happening to me, right? The poor me mentality, it seeps in. So we're often feeling the victim. And Prabhupada would say, and often he would use this phrase, that the jiva, the atma, the spirit soul in the material world is often victimized by the material energy. That we are victimized by the material energy. But it doesn't mean that we don't exactly deserve it. Because the material energy is working according to the infallible laws of justice, but we may be victimized. Anyway, so many things. Yeah. Then, Dhruva Maharaj, I'm just realizing that we have so little time, and I've still got 60 slides. So we're going to go real fast. So there's yoga as part of the envy. So then Dhruva Maharaj, he takes to the system of bhakti yoga described by Queen Suniti. And everyone can continue in his constitutional, occupational duties and at the same time keep the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart. So as Prabhupada would often say, you don't have to give up anything, you just have to add one thing. Our process is not about subtraction, it's about addition. And we just add Krishna. And we know the story of the zeros. Prabhupada was speaking to devotees and he would say, what is a value? And they would say, wealth. He said, it's a zero. They said, family. He said, zero. They said, good job. He said, zero. And then he kept going. They kept saying, education, zero. All these things. And then Prabhupada, if I give you a check with 10 zeros, will you be happy? And they said, no, because it still equals zero. He said, but if you put a 1 in front of all those zeros, then every one of the zeros is valuable. So wealth, education, family, good job, all of these things have value if you add Krishna. But without Krishna, they're all useless waste of time, as Bhagavatam would say. Okay, so many things here. The great sage Maitreya continued, the instruction of Dhruva Maharaj's mother Suniti was actually meant for fulfilling his desired objective. Therefore, after deliberate consideration and with intelligence and fixed determination, he left his father's house for the forest. So that was the end of part 1. So maybe we'll stop there. There's still part 2 and part 3. But we'll leave you on a cliffhanger. You already know the story anyway. But Very nice. So many nice points in this pastime. So many beautiful sections. So many relevant instructions. And I think together we have discussed a little bit at the end of a TT in an auspicious place with an auspicious audience and an auspicious speaker, but who's trying to become auspicious. So like that, Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ki Jai, Dhruva's Journey, Ki Jai. Haribol, wow, Mataji, thank you so much. You can come to all of my classes, please. Thank you for the invitation. Anyone has any comments, questions, reflections, chastisements? Okay, Hadai Pran Gosai.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful class. I had a comment and a question.
Beautiful.
The comment was, I was just recently reading about Uddhava's prayers. I was reading Uddhava's prayers, and it was making a very similar thing, is that we don't desire liberation, but what does Uddhava desire? He desires to not even be a tree, not even to be a bush, because he was thinking like, how do I serve these gopis? And he's thinking that because by serving these gopis, I'm serving Krishna because they're so dear to Krishna. And he said, I'll be a tree in Vrindavan so I can observe them. He said, no, that means, he said, if I ask for their service directly, they won't give it to me. And then so, let me try to be a tree so I can observe them. No, I'm not going to get their mercy. And let me be a bush. Oh no, I won't get their mercy. But the way I'll get it is like, I think it starts with a G, this word in Sanskrit. It's like, gunam or something. He said, let me be a blade of grass in Braja. So the only reason is because I want these gopis foot dust to be there. So that's actually a desire devotee. It's not so much that verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati, Kaivalya Narakayate, that liberation is, what is liberation like? A serpent? Or it's considered like a not desirable. Narayana Parasarvena Kotashna Vibhuti. So thank you for that. You reminded me of that. And my question was, we spoke about paid Bhagavatam reciters, and it was just recently the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
Yes.
And he spoke very, very heavily and was quite attacked. And I heard... I was hearing a nice class about him. He was saying that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the most humble. He was a benevolent aggressor. he was very good at. He was a benevolent aggressor. So he would shake these people up. But in terms of people who are living with doing devotional service but are being maintained, so what is kind of like how much is too much versus what is a standard? Like I see some people, they may do like, I don't know, like Bhagavad Saptas or Kirtan concerts or home programs, and is the standard that if I don't come to, like I make a billing list, like unless you give me $2,000, I'm not coming to your home program. Is that too much, or I just wanted to get some more clarity on that.
Yeah, beautiful question, and also another one of our polarizing points in our movement at the moment. First, my answer would be, it's not about how much is too much. My response is, what is the motivation of the person? And because Prabhupada said they should get me a solid gold Rolls Royce. So, and actually, Prabhupada, when devotees told him about the yogi whose hand automatically went away from money, Prabhupada said, my hand goes out, I take it, then I put my hand back out again. So we can't forget that our motivation is the principle of yukta vairagya. And our motivation is actually, we should be returning as much of Lakshmi to Narayan as possible. So it's not a question of how much, but it's a question of the motive. And then at the end, you said, if I say I'll come to your home program if you give me $2,000, then we see what is the motive. If the motive is that I'm happy to come to your home program, and there's not a consideration of payment or donation. But if they give him or her $5,000, is that a problem? No. Especially if they bring that $5,000 back and they put it in Prabhupada's hundi, or they sponsor Prabhupada's books and they arrange for them to go to hotels and libraries and different, you understand. So Prabhupada would take the Lakshmi, and every cent was being engaged in Krishna's service. So we have to become expert at doing that. And that's what Prabhupada said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He said, you can have the whole United States tomorrow if you just knew how to engage it all in Krishna's service. So like that, it's about motivation. It's not about a monetary amount. And as far as things like doing Bhagavat Saptahas, now first, let's look at the context that Prabhupada is often speaking from, and also Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is speaking from, a specific thing that occurs in India, which is that people are making a lot of money by doing these professional recitations. And I remember hearing from one of my godbrothers how a few of them went to see one of these things, to see what it is, and how these guys are like actors. And this is covered by the pastime of Romaharshan Sutta. That basically if you sit there and you're just making a play, if it's just a drama for you, if it's just you're just reading a script and reciting your lines, and they do that in such a way that they evoke emotion. And they skip to specific parts to evoke emotion. And my godbrothers were saying that, the whole audience would be crying, then they'd be laughing, then they'd be then, and he would just pull out all these emotions in them. And then at the end, though, after all of this, and talking about Krishna, speaking about Krishna and Krishna's Leela, Krishna's pastime, but then at the end, they would inject the poison. Like the milk touched by the lips of a serpent. They would inject the poison by saying, and you too can become this Supreme Personality of Godhead. You too can enjoy. But after all those emotions, whatever they drop into the ears flows straight into the heart with open reception, and they just accept it and believe it, because this orator has just spoken so wonderfully. But as Balaram said, even though Romaharshan Sutta was the direct disciple of Srila Vyasadeva, still, because he lacked true humility, his words were just like the words of a script. He was just reciting some script, it was just a play for him. So like that, and their motivation is to do that, to evoke emotion and make money. And then they move on to the next. But for a devotee, I was just hearing, because there's a whole thing about people, we be doing big concerts where lots of people are coming and making money. And then I was listening to Leelamrita about how the devotees in the early days arranged the mantra rock concert, which wasn't even really kirtan, a kirtan concert, but they arranged it to attract the masses. Prabhupada had the Cross Maidan festival happening in Mumbai, all these Pando programs. He was creating big events to attract the masses, knowing that actually only a small portion of them will become pure devotees. He created the whole, ISKCON membership, life membership program. I mean, how many life members I've seen come into our centers? I am a life member, but they don't chant Hare Krishna. They probably don't follow the regular principles. They definitely want a place to stay, that's for sure. And they paid their 1,000. It's not that those are for the pure devotees. They're simply to make people favorable and to spread the holy name. And if the person doing the chanting is a devotee, like a sincere, serious devotee who isn't attached to making money, but in the process may be making money and may be getting some livelihood. My question is, really, is that so bad? And wouldn't we like to see that, because now someone shared recently that it's becoming a culture in India that they have these bhajan clubs. So instead of going to clubs where it's like, now they go and people are actually doing bhajans. Where has that come from? Where do you think that's come from? It's come from Srila Prabhupada. It's come from ISKCON. It's come from this movement that it's created this appeal to spiritual, kirtan, to songs. So like that, this is how vegetarianism is so prominent in the West. People talk about karma. Where does all that come from? Because Prabhupada came here and he spread it around. So like that, Prabhupada came and he took his dancing white elephants back to India and did big pandal programs, put them on display. Of course, Lakshmi came in. They had to get Lakshmi to put the pandals in. They had, and then, but Prabhupada utilized these dancing white elephants in order to attract the masses. So Prabhupada was expert at Yukta Vairagya. And he wasn't afraid if hundreds of thousands of dollars, pounds, rupees poured in the door, because he was prepared to use every cent of it in Krishna's service. So I think it's really about the motive, the motivation behind it, the consciousness behind it, rather than how much comes in. Well, anyway, just a thought. And we're almost at the end, and I don't know if someone's going to, I don't want to mess up the schedule. So, but someone else did raise their hand. Yes, Mother. So someone stop me if we should stop, and we can discuss over. Huh? Last question, okay.
Okay, thank you for such an engaging class. I'm struck at how Mother Sunichi, Queen Suniti, has the insight to cut through all the negative emotions that naturally precipitate from this kind of encounter. And what an amazing counselor she is.
Beautiful.
She saved him so much time. many lifetimes, perhaps.
Yes.
Of resentment and negativity, just by saying, look, just forget about that.
Yeah.
Move on. You're here to connect with Narayan. It's very beautiful. Thank you for highlighting that.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that out. And just on that point, real quick, what I appreciate most is that she didn't say, just forget about it. And that's important. Oftentimes we say, oh, just forget about it. But that's not real tolerance, and it's not true humility. What she said is, what she said was right. And then she took a nugget of nourishment from it. Because what Suruchi had said to her, said to Dhruva, is that first you have to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so she said, yeah, actually she's right. So she didn't just tell Dhruva to forget about it, but she said, you have to take some gold from that. You have to see the Lord's hand in that also. And you have to take that, and that will help you move forward. So then it's easy, like, digestion means we ingest something, we put something in, and we get some nourishment from it, but then there's always going to be some waste, some byproduct. So we shouldn't get hung up on the waste or byproduct. We should be focused on what is the nourishment we can get from this, and always there's some waste we have to disregard. Does that make sense?
Very helpful insight. Thank
Beautiful.
you.
Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Dhruva Maharaj ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Jai Nitai Gauda Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo.